Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Film Brits podcast. I'm your host, Trilbee, the Maurice Moss of film criticism, and it's been a while, and the reason for that, I feel like I'm starting a lot of podcasts like this, but basically, this was going to be recorded on Valentine's Day quite a while ago, this latest podcast, and then what happened was that there were some work commitments that I needed doing on Valentine's Day, which was quite depressing, and then I had to do a business trip to Wales for the weekend, went to Pinewood Studios Cardiff for some training for some assistant directing, and that was just a terrific experience. Wales is awesome, it's a terrific venue. Pinewood Studios Wales is legit and is awesome and is amazing. And then when I came back to try and sort that out, the podcast, construction work continued in just right outside of the window where I record, including a lot of fires going off. I don't think it's safe, especially when Storm Doris came along and there was a fire next door at the construction site. I think they were burning the twigs and the leaves, or something was happening next door at the construction site and blowing smoke right into the flat, which was really fun. That was a great experience and I love living here. But anyway, that's the reason for this delay. What's going to happen in order to try and make up for lost time is that I'm going to be doing a second podcast in a couple of days' time, which will be Patreon exclusive, because of course the patrons are paying for weekly podcasts, and I'll try and make up for lost time, and I may put it on YouTube or on SoundCloud at a later date, but I just want to make that an exclusive for the patrons. But if any of my patrons feel ripped off or anything, then please contact me and I'll refund you for the month, and then we'll just we'll go from a clean slate for next week. But the Oscars are tonight at time of recording. I won't be able to watch them because I'm up early for work the next day. I start a production job tomorrow that will be about 4 or 5 months long, maybe, give or take, which should be a lot of fun, should be a great job, really looking forward to it. I won't tell you what it is until I've worked on it because, confidentiality and all that sort of stuff, but I'm looking forward to sharing it all with you. That should be a lot of fun. But I won't be able to watch the Oscars tomorrow, tonight I should say. Well, it is technically tomorrow, because it'll be after midnight by the time it happens. Fingers crossed for La La Land, but I've not watched all of the Best Picture nominees for the first time since 2012. In 2012, the only one I didn't watch that year was Amour, which was the foreign language film, and it being a foreign language film, and me living where I did at the time, it was practically impossible to watch it legally, which of course made it difficult to watch all of the nominees that year, and it means I'm not going to be doing a video or anything because I've just not seen all of the nominees. It just wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be an equal playing field, and it wouldn't be right to rank them all or to talk about them all as a whole without having seen all of them. So it also just, the fact that I've been so busy and I've been travelling here, there and everywhere across the country and doing work and everything, it just prevents you from seeing everything. But we're going to be talking about today something that I think we can all find the time for, and that is Doctor Who. But first things first, let's get to the Share the Love segment. Now, when I was going to record this initially on Valentine's Day, I was going to have the Share the Love segment be the Humble Bundle. Now, for those of you who don't know, Humble Bundle is a website where they, if you're a PC gamer, you probably know, but if you don't know, they are a gaming website where they put together massively incredible packages of great value for PC games, where you can pay basically whatever amount you want and it can go to charity, and you can get some really, really cheap games, and you can use it to either support the game industry, support Humble Bundle as an organisation, or support charity, or any combination of the three. And at the time when I was going to record this podcast, they were doing a special one. They were doing a big charity giveaway to support the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, Doctors Without Borders, and the International Rescue Committee, because around that time the Muslim ban was still very much prominent. It still is prominent to an extent, but back then when I was going to record it, it was still the major story in the world at that time. And what they were going to do is that, for $30 or just over £24, you got $600 worth of critically acclaimed independent games on PC, DRM free, including games like Super Meat Boy, The Stanley Parable, World of Goo, V, Octodad, Dadliest Catch, Guacamelee, and way more titles being added. And if the collective amount for all of the donations matched $300,000, then the Humble Bundle would match that. And I'm just looking at the screen right now. There's still technically 9 hours of that bundle. Oh, no, that's a different bundle. What am I on about? But the Freedom Bundle is over, but I believe that they way surpassed that goal. So a lot of money was raised for those organisations. But the general share the love for this week will just be for Humble Bundle, who at the time of recording they're doing a Humble Civilization bundle, which the Civilization games, where you can pay like $8 and get like Civilization 5 for... Oh no, I think that's 6 actually. I'm no good at Roman numerals. Or you can just pay $1 to get the complete Civilization collection and Civ 4 complete edition. But yeah, make sure to just go on Humble Bundle if you're into PC gaming at all. Because of the nature of it, you don't need to have a powerful laptop or a powerful PC to run most of these games, because these ones are numerous years old, or they're indie titles that can run on even some of the most some older hardware. And what's probably worth doing is just going to the Humble Bundle website, creating an account and signing up to their newsletter when you can be informed of all of the bundles. You can get top tier franchises like Civilization, like Assassin's Creed, and basically sometimes they just have really big, awesome themed ones like Ubisoft themed ones, or THQ, or EA and things like that. And of course, if you want all of the money that you donate on that website to go to charity, you are well within your rights to do that. They give you the option to do that. So I highly recommend going to the Humble Bundle if you're interested in either charity or gaming. And the best part is that even if you're not into gaming and you know someone who is, you can donate and buy the games, and you can gift them to someone. If they've got Steam, or if they've got GOG, Good Old Games, or some other PC digital platform, you can gift all of these games to them and do the charity in their name. Like there's literally no reason to not go on this website, or at least to find out what they're doing in terms of charity. So the Share the Love segment this week is going to be dedicated to the Humble Bundle. Now let's get to the main topic of the podcast, and that is this casting aspect for the new Doctor in Doctor Who. So I think it was one of the podcasts I did, one of the latest episodes, where I was talking about what they could do with Peter Capaldi in the future with Chris Chibnall, and then a day later, they announced that Peter Capaldi would be leaving at the end of the next Christmas special, the final Stephen Moffat script, and that for Chris Chibnall's new writing team, or whatever he's doing, or him as a showrunner, they're going to be bringing on an entirely new Doctor. And as a result, the discussion has been quite rampant online as to who should play the next Doctor. Now, if you follow me on Facebook, there's like a Cliff Notes version of what I think about the next casting choice, but I thought I'd elaborate more on this podcast, talk about it more, and just get a more of a discussion going in the comment section, whether it's YouTube, SoundCloud, or whatever platform you'd rather do. But in terms of who the next Doctor is, it seems like I've got some choices that seem to always be prevalent. Like when David Tennant left, or when Matt Smith left, there's always some choices that I go back to. People like Saran Jones, people like James Nesbitt, someone like Richard Ayoade. These are casting choices that I've thought of for literally years, and that kind of holds true here. But what's happening right now is that the discussion is leaning towards many blog posts, many editorials, saying the next Doctor must be female, the next Doctor must be black, the next Doctor must be Asian, the next Doctor, like all of this conversation happening. And while I understand the enthusiasm behind those proclamations, the BBC, Chris Chibnall, Stephen Moffat, or whoever is going to be having a say in the casting of the next Doctor, there's no have about it. There's no obligation that they have to cast black, that they have to cast woman, but conversely, there's also no obligation that they have to cast white. Like, there are some characters like, say, James Bond. Like, you can completely understand the argument that you can't really have a woman play James Bond, because James Bond is a masculine ideal. It would, obviously, if you were going to cast a woman, which it's not impossible, we do live in the real world, and these are fictional characters that writers are able to change. Like, they're not set in stone. It's not chiseled in rock. It's not chiseled in adamantium there for all time. These characters do live in flux, and they do have to adapt and change with the times, or they can change either just for the sake of change, or because the creative team want to tell a different story and a different perspective does that. But you can get the argument that James Bond is a masculine ideal, therefore a man is the most ideal pick for James Bond. And if you were going to have a female James Bond, then I feel like the main reason to do that would be to explore gender dynamics in action films or in the spy genre, or females taking on masculine tropes for the sake of action or entertainment or fiction and things like that. I think you would have to deliberately go subversive to justify that. I'm not saying it couldn't be done. I just think that's like the number one. If there was a list of things that you could do with that type of casting, that ideal would be the number one on the list. But for the Doctor, I think that you genuinely can audition, at least, with diversity in mind. Because the thing about the Doctor is that he's the type of character who, like, one of the best moments of the David Tennant era was actually really early on. It's when it's in Tooth and Claw and the werewolf is breaking out of the cage. Everyone, all the humans in that room are screaming, are trying to escape, running away because this horrific beast creature is going to kill them and is breaking out of the cage. But the Doctor's like, that is beautiful. Like, he fully embraces people. In The End of the World of Christopher Eccleston, he was flirting with a tree creature. He was flirting with these creatures. There's this... it was mostly prevalent in the David Tennant and to a lesser extent the Matt Smith era, where he would flirt with different species. He is an incredibly inclusive character. It's one reason why the Doctor Who fan base, at least from where I sit, is incredibly diverse. Black, white, male, female, transgender, homosexual, bisexual, because the Doctor as a character, as the main protagonist of this decades-long institution, is incredibly accepting of different cultures, different faiths, different religions, different types of people, different species by nature. He is not human. He is a Time Lord who walks around the Earth like he owns the place, because it's a diverse universe out there, even though it's quite likely that the universe is equally as diverse as the universe we live in right now, I should say, is just as diverse as Doctor Who's universe. Who knows, we might discover life in like thousands of years' time. It's still an incredibly diverse planet that we live on, and the Doctor would accept anybody. It's like one of my favourite stories, and a story that I just cannot wait to finish the review of, is The Rings of Akaten, because the entire first half of that story is just the Doctor on a completely alien, it's a very alien world, different species, and an entirely different culture that he's accepting of. He loves it there. He's having an absolute ball of a time there, trying to sing along and accepting everything. It's only when that those people's beliefs are used in the name of harming a child, or just in the name of prejudice, that he takes umbrage with it, because he's completely accepting until they cross that moral line. And when Doctor Who has an incredibly diverse fan base, is the long and short of it. And there's precedent in the series to have a female Doctor, or to have a non-white actor play the Doctor. That Pandora's box in recent years has been opened by Stephen Moffat. It feels like he's been doing it in a slightly antagonising way, or just to do it for the sake of doing it. But that box is now open. That is now part of canon. There is now no reason that you can't have someone like Saran Jones, Naveen Andrews, Richard Ayoade, Lucy Boynton, or somebody else to play the Doctor now. And when I think of what is going to be unfolding, this discussion over the next few weeks and months, is that Chris Chibnall and the rest of the BBC should at minimum, audition with diversity in mind. There is no quota or there's no obligation to cast diverse, but I think it would behoove the BBC to at least do some screen tests with Pearl Mackie or whoever the next companion is going to be if Chris Chibnall just wants to wipe the slate clean and have a brand new companion. There's absolutely no harm in doing screen tests with Pearl Mackie with a variety of actors: white, black, Asian, Japanese, male, female, trans. Talk to lots of different talented people and see what works. Like I said, there's absolutely no harm in trying in the audition stage. There's no obligation or diversity quota for the final casting, but maybe a quota for the auditions might be fruitful. Like the worst case scenario is that it's not even a worst case, it is just a scenario, is that you cast the status quo, you do cast us another white guy, which is absolutely fine, and then what you have is these screen tests with these different actors who might not have been given a chance otherwise, and they could turn up in a supporting role. They could get a companion. There could be a new equivalent to Nardor, like a regular character. And then you've introduced diversity, or at least you've got somebody different in front of the eyes of the BBC who might say, we don't think you're good for Doctor Who, but you're good for this other programme that we've got coming up. No harm whatsoever. And the fact that people are saying, no, the Doctor must be a man or must be white, there's no must here. Like, of course, I'm sure there are arguments to be had, and I'm willing to debate and discuss, but discuss. Sorry if that came out wrong. I'm willing to have this discussion or this debate, but there is no obligation on either side at all. Like, that's not even me having an argument. Like, that's not even me trying to be controversial or me trying to be contrarian or anything. It's just a fact. There is no obligation here. Basically, if we got a white actor like Ben Whishaw or somebody like James Nesbitt, who has been my go-to guy for years, then I'll be absolutely happy with that. If we do get a woman like Saran Jones, then I will be absolutely happy with that. If we get a non-white person like Richard Ayoade, then I'll once again will absolutely be happy with that. Like, there's absolutely no harm in this. I'm not going to be bent out of shape either way. And by that same token, if James Nesbitt, who I think is perfect for the role, if he's not cast, I also won't get bent out of shape, because these discussions, it's ultimately out of our hands. I'm not saying that don't have favourites, don't have this discussion, but it's not really going to influence the BBC in any way, because what's going to happen is what happens literally every single time. And it's the same thing about James Bond as well. There's always a favourite, it's like Idris Elba or Tom Hiddleston, but they're likely going to cast somebody who is relatively under the radar, someone who is maybe only really prominent in retrospect. Like Peter Capaldi has been on TV and film for decades, but a very long time. But he's not that massive A-list name, so you're probably still going to get somebody on that level playing the Doctor again. But like, okay, so just so it's on record, if people want to know who I think, like, I think Saran Jones would be a terrific Doctor, because I think what you get with like, you could cast someone younger, like say Lucy Boynton, but I think when you have somebody with the caliber of talent that Saran Jones has, that talent comes from years and years of experience. Like she's a beautiful woman, but she's also somebody who you could conceivably, I think, might have some mileage on her. And in the sense, like, Matt Smith was a very young actor, relatively speaking, and the youngest actor to play the Doctor. But there were moments, like at the end of The Big Bang, where you just felt all like 1,000 years on his face as playing the Doctor. And I think Saran Jones is able to pull that off completely. And if you've seen Dr. Foster, if you've seen Scott and Bailey, you'll know that she's one of the best actresses out there, like, period, on TV right now. You get a lot of people saying, I don't care about gimmicks, I don't care about political correctness or SJWs or stuff like that, I just want to cast talent. Well, if you just want to cast talent, then you cast Saran Jones. Like, it's a really strange place that we're in now culturally, where if you cast a guy, it's normal, it's the status quo. He's clearly been cast for the talent, but if you cast anything outside of that sphere, then it's a gimmick. Like, regardless of how talented they are, just because it's not the status quo, then you're doing it for it. Like, it's absolutely ludicrous. It's like people say, I don't care who plays the Doctor, because you just need somebody who's super duper duper talented. Then you say, okay, do you want to cast Meryl Streep, literally one of the most talented actors in history? And then they say, no, I don't want her to play the Doctor. And then it just kind of reveals that it's not all about talent, it's just about you trying to make a contrarian statement. Like, if you're going to say, I only want the most talented person to play this character, and then they offer you the most talented person, but it's not who you personally had in mind, then you're being deliberately contradictory. Like, at least acknowledge it. And it's, like I said, it's a really weird and difficult discussion to have in this current cultural climate, because people have made it difficult to talk about. They're trying to be deliberately contrarian. Now, this is going to sound really, really snobby and really elitist or whatever, but it's the truth. You need to understand how the creative world works, or just how the world works in general, because when you say, I want to cast the most talented person for this role, it sounds like it's the right thing to say. It sounds like it's the correct 100% like infallible argument. But that's not how the world works. Because if you were going to say, I want the most talented person to play the Doctor, okay, that sounds like the right thing to say. But when you take into account the realities of the world, okay, the most talented actor in the world, okay, Daniel Day-Lewis, okay, is he available? Is he right for the scripts? Is his fee negotiable enough? Can you afford him? Does, like, scheduling conflicts? Has he got something coming up? And then you realise that casting the most talented person, of course it's subjective, but it's also, like, maybe you can't get the most talented person. Like, maybe there's so much more that goes into a topic of casting than getting the most talented person. It was like I was saying earlier, like, if you are saying you want the most talented actress, if it's going to be a woman to play the Doctor, you get Meryl Streep, okay? Can you afford Meryl Streep? Oh, she's got a movie coming up. Can you, like, or can you actually get around the scheduling? And also, Meryl Streep is such a recognisable Hollywood actress, would actually, like, detract from the Doctor to cast someone like Meryl Streep. And therein lies the whole issue with that debate. Like, I shouldn't need to explain this, but this is how the world works. It's when you go into Costa or into McDonald's, and the person who serves you that coffee or serves you that burger or whatever, were they necessarily the most talented person who was interviewed? Genuinely, and that's not to drag them down, but maybe they were under a certain age so that the company didn't have to pay them a higher minimum wage. Maybe the person they wanted was offered another job. Maybe they couldn't get the next person because of scheduling. Like, that maybe they needed this person to work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but they had special commitments that they had to make on Thursday, so they had to go for this other person. It's like when people are saying, why are you just trying to, like, diversify casting or diversify crewing and production just for the sake of it? You should cast the most talented person. It doesn't matter if they're black or white. There are so many things to consider. And when, like I said, it sounds like it's the right thing to say, but instead it's just being said in the name of bigotry. Like, that's what it kind of gets down to. It's like when there was that like, I say massive because it actually wasn't. It doesn't affect the BBC or the industry one iota, but there was like a miniature backlash to people saying, oh, the BBC want to have a quota by, like, was it 2018 or 2019? They want to have a quota that they want their percentage of actors and crew members and to reflect the population of the UK, or at least its estimated population by the time these things come out. They want to hire more disabled people. They want to hire more non-white, more females. And then you just got this backlash saying you're just diversifying for the sake of it, and you need to cast the best person for the job. Because, like I said, it sounds like the right thing to say, but the real world does not work like that. So I know this is becoming a completely different topic of discussion, but this is, like, one of the most prevalent things happening right now. Like, I know that this was the topic I was going to talk about when I was going to record this podcast on Valentine's Day, but then like, even today on my newsfeed there was I can't remember the name of the guy. I've just remembered this now, but there was a news story sort of saying that there was a guy who was saying that, okay, here we go, David Harewood says that the next Doctor needs to be black or female. It needs to be different. And like I said, I understand the enthusiasm behind that, but it's there's no obligation here. And I think that if it is someone like James Nesbitt, I'm not going to get bent out of shape. If it's somebody like Tilda Swinton, if it's somebody like Saran Jones, then once again I'm not going to get bent out of shape, because I have faith in this creative team for at least the casting. Like Peter Capaldi, even though I think that the scripts have really let him down, and I think that he's, like, way above the material that he's been given, you can't fault that casting decision. He's a terrific Doctor, and even people like Matt Smith, people who you probably might not even see as the Doctor, are able to convince you because they bring their own physicality to it. And even if it doesn't work out in 3 or 4 years' time, you can just change again. You can change them again. You can learn from the mistakes. That's a great thing about a serialized program like Doctor Who. And it's what's perfect about Regeneration, is that this show can liven itself up every couple of years. It can change to meet the different circumstances and the different climate of the time it's made. It's actually one of the most immortal shows ever created in terms of its formula, which is why Doctor Who has lasted as long as it has. Like Doctor Who, if there was no such thing as regeneration, it would have lasted only 3 or 4 years, and it probably would be just thought of as an obscure sci-fi touchstone from the 60s, like at best. But today we're still talking about it, and we're still getting new casting decisions, even as the legacy starts to slowly fade away behind it. Like John Hurt passed away a couple of weeks ago, which was like that hit me hard. That was really sad news. But he is like immortalized as the Doctor now, and as he passes away, we're bringing in somebody new. It is a circle of life type of show, and a circle of life show must also adapt to the cultural needs around it. And with the UK increasingly having a more diverse population, this is happening. This is happening. It's having an increasingly more diverse population. Then there's nothing wrong with the BBC's flagship sci-fi show that is a cultural worldwide institution to not reflect that. If it doesn't reflect that, I'm not going to be angry. If it does reflect that, like I said, I'm not going to be angry. It will just be down to the scripts that they're given. But my 3, like I said, James Nesbitt, Saran Jones, Richard Ayoade. Richard Ayoade is probably not going to do it because he's going to be doing the Crystal Maze. And maybe, I don't know if he would be able to do a dramatic role. I don't know, but he's an incredibly thoughtful guy. And if you've seen the stuff he's directed, you know that at least his mind is able to go to those darker and more mature places. And whether or not he can pull that off on screen by himself as a screen presence, who knows? Maybe not. But basically what I'm saying here is that Joanna Lumley was the best Doctor. Okay, that's all I'm saying here, right? So what are your picks for the next Doctor? Like, regardless, like, you can pick anyone you want with one stipulation: they've got to be British. Because I think that's basically the unanimous point here. I think even the people who don't want to cast female or non-white or whatever, I think even those who have opposing viewpoints on that angle at least agree that they've got to be a British actor. So that's kind of the barrier to entry here. So who do you think should be the next Doctor? Please comment in the comment section below. Let's get this discussion going. And so a couple of my patrons have given their thoughts as well. Anne Neubauer says, my vote is to keep the Doctor British, but if they go Australian, consider John Noble. And I don't think I know who John Noble is, but it's an interesting idea to have to cast an Australian for a British institution. I know that. I'm just looking now. He was Denethor in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. That guy. Actually, I can kind of see that. He also voiced Unicron in Transformers Prime. That's a random thing that happened. But yeah, I know that there's been a lot of people on Facebook letting me know who they would like to cast as the Doctor. Ben Whishaw is a popular choice. Hayley Atwell is definitely what my Facebook followers are rooting for. I think Hayley Atwell would actually be a terrific choice, and you know that she's able to carry a serialized TV series because she is terrific in Agent Parker. And I think people have been saying that. So, 1 second. Chris Marshall. Just looking on my Facebook post now. Whoopi Goldberg came up. Richard Ayoade was said. So yeah, there's quite a few people who are thinking just outside of the box. But like I said, there's absolutely no issue with at least auditioning for diversity. Like I said, there's no quota to say that they have to cast in terms of diversity for Doctor Who for this character. But I think maybe a quota for auditioning. I think, was it the NFL? I think it was the NFL where a few years ago they introduced a quota that a certain percent of people, a certain percent of non-whites had to be at least interviewed for a NFL coach or an NFL manager. And that quota just for interviewing allowed different people to be considered for the job, and I think they increased their diversity, and then their businesses went up, because that's kind of what happens when you embrace more diversity, you embrace more audiences in, you actually get more money. That's kind of like Marvel Studios, like they had some of their fledgling comics from years and years ago, when they recast them or introduced more diverse characters, their sales figures shot up, and they also got a lot of critical acclaim for it, as well as like many awards, and some comic books that only got maybe a couple of thousand sales per month were now getting tens of thousands of sales per month, and people like really embraced it. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but like just to emphasize, I'm not saying that they have to cast black, they have to cast woman, but you know, there's nothing wrong with that if they do. Like, the Doctor is an inclusive character, and I think his regeneration can hypothetically reflect that. But let's get to the patron questions. So if you would like to support this podcast financially, then please consider going to patreon.com/Trilbee and pledging to get some questions asked on the show. We'll have some in-depth topics and discussions, and there was even a couple of conversations happening in the Patreon thread, because Sir Dean Jones of Film Brits, Ann Newbower was asking how Dean Jones got knighted, and Dean actually elaborated in episode 5 of the original Film Brits with Sam. With Sam from Sam's channel, in episode 5, Strip Jumanji, which I think is one of the best episodes that me and Sam ever did of Film Brit. We answered a question regarding the ranking of the 3 Flavours Cornetto trilogy, and then Sam and myself then said that he should be knighted. So I need to listen back to that episode and just find out exactly what happened, but allegedly, according to Dean, that's when it happened. And so let's answer Dean's questions first. So he says, with Marvel Studios releasing 3 films this year, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Spider-Man Homecoming and Thor Ragnarok, which is your most anticipated and why? Dean Jones says that his most anticipated is Guardians. Now, Guardians is the one that makes the most sense. There's no wrong answer to this question. But they've had the most trailers, they've had the most clips revealed, and of course we have the precedence of the Guardians already in this universe. We know that it's pretty much a surefire bet that if we like Guardians of the Galaxy 1, we're going to like Guardians of the Galaxy 2, because it looks like it's going to be expanding on what we loved in the first one, turning it up to 11, exploring the characters more, adding new concepts, and the trailers seem to confirm that as well. What I like about the trailers is that we don't know any of the plot yet. Like, we know a lot about the tone, we've met a lot of the new characters, but we don't have a plot yet. And that's kind of exciting. With Spider-Man Homecoming, I'm looking forward to it, but they've got to do a lot to redeem The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I need to know just what ratio of creative control Marvel and Sony have with each other on this project. I'm going to be a bit trepidatious about that. But the trailer looks really good. I think Tom Holland was a terrific Spider-Man in Civil War, and let's see if he can carry an entire film as the character. But my most anticipated has got to be Thor Ragnarok. And for multiple reasons. There's Taika Waititi, who is directing, and I believe he's also co-writing the screenplay. If you've not seen What We Do in the Shadows and Hunt for the Wilder People, when this podcast is done, actually, do it right now. Keep listening to the podcast, but do this right now. Go to Netflix, find What We Do in the Shadows and or Hunt for the Wilder People, and put it on like a list or bookmark it, or do something which means that next time you open up Netflix, you can find it easily again. And watch those after this podcast is done, or pause the podcast and watch them now, because those are terrific, biting, fun films that just completely, like, they do such a great job at portraying Taika Waititi's eccentric personality. I watched Hunt for the Wilder People again yesterday on Netflix, and that is just such a terrific and tight film. It's really heartfelt, it's really funny, it's like a complete package film. It's terrific. So this fresh, awesome new voice in the MCU is exciting enough. But with Thor Ragnarok, with what we've seen from like the concept art and the casting, Jeff Goldblum, Cate Blanchett, this new cast that we're going to be seeing, and also the fact that they're going to be taking inspiration from the Thor Ragnarok story, and Loki's going to be back as well, and Doctor Strange is going to be making an appearance in it, and the Hulk, who, need I remind you, is my favourite comic book character of all time, and The Incredible Hulk is still my favourite Phase 1 Marvel film apart from The Avengers. the Hulk's inclusion gets me excited, incredibly excited for Thor Ragnarok, and the camaraderie between the two, the potential exploration and the cosmic ideas that Thor Ragnarok can explore, along with a potential like doomsday scenario, because Ragnarok is the Norse equivalent of the apocalypse, and Ragnarok is just a really fun word to say. My most anticipated has got to be Thor Ragnarok, and ironically, it's the one that we've seen the least. We're in an interesting phase for Marvel now, where they've got 3 films coming out per year, and as a result, like if a trailer for Thor Ragnarok drops before the release of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which is very possible, we're going to be having 3 different hype cycles going at the same time. And we need to know if that's going to burn itself out or how that pans out. But I'm looking forward to seeing how that affects Marvel's and Disney's marketing strategies, whether or not they may be a little bit more conservative on information because they've got so many films that they need to market. That's going to be interesting. But in terms of what my most anticipated of the 3 is, if I had to rank them, least is Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm still looking forward to it, but it's my least of the 3. Second is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and number 1 is Thor Ragnarok. And like I said, there's no wrong answer to this question. I just think with Taika Waititi, with the Hulk, with the inspiration from Planet Hulk and Ragnarok, and just the cast involved, it's going to be pretty terrific. Although I will say, I think Spider-Man Homecoming, I really hope that they pull a bait and switch with Michael Keaton's character. I hope that he maybe starts off as the Vulture and then it turns out he's Norman Osborn, because you don't waste an actor like Michael Keaton on just a one-film villain like the Vulture. He's too good a caliber an actor to just have as the Vulture. Especially in a cinematic universe. Like, John Malkovich is a terrific actor, and he was going to be playing Vulture in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4, but that was going to be that was a different, like, entire superhero movie climate. That was so different back then. Even though it would have come out, I think Raimi's Spider-Man 4 was planning to come out in 2011, and then, they said, we want this film to come out in 2011, and Sam Raimi said, no, in order to make this work, I want to take a quick break and then have it come out in 2012, and they said, no, we must have it come out earlier, so we're going to reboot it, and then The Amazing Spider-Man comes out in 2012 anyway, which kind of shows how mismanaged the whole Spider-Man reboot was, but I digress. So, Thor Ragnarok is my most anticipated of those 3. Next question comes from Anne Neubauer, who says, do you have any favourite films in terms of dialogue? Movies that showcase novel turns of phrase, interesting conversations, or just captivating language? There's a sort of fun debate happening on my Facebook feed the other day. People were saying, who does dialogue better? Edgar Wright or Quentin Tarantino? And I think that they are both on par, but it depends on what you're looking for. If you are just looking for colourful language and just a sheer variety of characters, you kind of go for Tarantino. Like everything from like the Hateful Eight's Frontier Justice speech, or Pulp Fiction with like basically everything that Samuel L. Jackson does, or like Jackie Brown and the almost the lack of dialogue from is it Robert De Niro? I think it's Robert De Niro. I'm just thinking, and Inglourious Bastards. I want my Nazi scalps. Say Avida Saint your Nazi balls, and I guess the entire opening conversation between Hans Lander and the farmer. Those films are just filled with incredible dialogue and great characters as well. But with Edgar Wright, in terms of his writing and his screenplays, he's much more interested in structure. I'd say structures and themes. I think Tarantino is a character-driven filmmaker, whereas I think Edgar Wright. Obviously, characters do play a big factor in his stories. We remember characters like Sean, like Liz, Four Eyes, Timothy Dalton's character. We remember these personalities, these really over-the-top eccentric people. We remember Gary King, Andy Knightley. But he's a lot more interested in theme and genre conventions. So, in terms of dialogue, let's go for Tarantino. I think Inglourious Bastards is just... It's my favourite film of his, but that could be because it was the first one that I watched when I was really starting to get into film analysis and film discussion. But in terms of other favourite films in terms of dialogue, a recent one that's just terrific is Hunt for the Wilder People. That film's got just such colourful language and such great jokes and gags that even if it's just the minimalism of where Ricky Baker goes up to Uncle Heck and says, "Is there anything you want me to do?" And he says, "Yeah, leave me alone. There's just some, also got some really funny wordplay, like when Ricky Baker discovers that they are both wanted, and there's a wanted poster out for them, and he says, Hector, 63 years old and Caucasian. They got your race wrong because you're obviously white. There's just some really great jokes and great wordplay in there. I think Taika Waititi's writing is just getting stronger and stronger. I think he's just absolutely up and coming. But in terms of interesting turns of phrase or conversations, those are the ones that spring to mind immediately. I'm sure there's probably a few more if I thought about the topic a little bit more. Just for fun, let's go to Best Screenplay nominees at the Academy Awards. Okay, Academy Award for... Okay, no, let's go for Best Original Screenplay. Let's take a look at this list. Okay, yeah, Django Unchained by Quentin Tarantino, that's another one. King's Speech, Hurt Locker, In Bruges, Juno. I will say anything that... where's it gone? Where's it gone? I've lost it. He wrote Anomalisa and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Charlie Kaufman, that's the one. Yeah, Charlie Kaufman, he's a really interesting screenwriter where he just puts layers upon layers upon layers, and I think Adaptation is one of the best screenplays written in recent memory, and it's basically just the perfect response to movie, like, because they always say in film school, like, just avoid the cliche of let's write a movie about someone with writer's block. Like, that's just the most cliche thing ever, and it feels like the movie Adaptation is just the perfect rebuttal to that. It's basically a meta commentary on writer's block or on a screenwriter. I think that is the definitive writer's block screenplay, and that you should never ever try and do that genre again if you're planning on redoing it. I think Burn After Reading, because I'm not a big fan of Joel and Ethan Coen, the Coen brothers. I'm actually not a big fan of what they do. I actually think that a lot of their writing's a bit flimsy and really, really lacking in substance. But I will say that Burn After Reading is one of my favourite films of theirs. I think that there's a lot of colourful language, and the banter between George Clooney and Frances McDormand is a lot of fun. And the characterisation of like Brad Pitt's character in that film as the gym instructor, Chad. He's so much fun in that film, and it's all about just a great character being inhabited by a really committed actor, because someone could have just phoned that in, but Brad Pitt just went full hog at that one, and that was a lot of fun. So those are some more recent examples. But the next question comes from George, who asks, question 1, have you ever visited any theme parks? If so, what moment stood out to you? I've not been to a theme park for about 12 or 13 years, give or take. Probably because it was around the time when I started going to college and university that there was a lot less time to go on holiday, and when I did have the free time, I was too poor to go abroad to a theme park or pay for a theme park ticket or anything like that. However, I have been to Alton Towers, been to Pleasure Island, been to Universal Studios, Islands of Adventure, there's a theme park in Gran Canaria. It might just be called Gran Canaria. I can't remember. But there's some great water parks in that region as well. In terms of what moments stood out to me. Okay, right. Can't remember where this was. It might have been Spain. But it was a water park, and what they had was two water slides next to each other. One of them was called Bombay, and it was one of those ridiculously tall vertical. Got my things wrong. A vertical drop, kind like where you get at the top of the slide and then you just slide down, like you're basically dropping straight down. But what they did in this water slide, I'll see if I can find out where it was. I'm certain it was called Bombay. It was okay. I think it was Wet and Wild in Orlando. You can actually watch it. You can watch a video of it happening on YouTube. There's a 42-second video of it. What they do is that they put you in this little in this tube at the top of the slide that's shaped like a bomb, and you stand inside this pod, and there's a little glass window just so you can see the rest of the park from where you're stood. And what will happen is that after about 5 or 10 seconds after the door closes, that floor is going to drop. You're just going to fall straight down, and then you go down that slide. I didn't go down that slide because I was absolutely too terrified to, and I was about 8 or 9 years old. Actually, it was the same year that Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire came out, and I remember that because I bought my Game Boy Advance with me and I just bought it. That was 2003. So I was 11 years old. Yeah, I was 11 years old when I went to Wet n Wild in Orlando. And there was a slide next to it that didn't have the drop, that it didn't have the bomb, the capsule that you got into and then dropped you. But there was a slide next to it that was about 30 or 40 feet taller that I went on. And the height, obviously I was terrified, but it was clear that the trade-off was worth it. I would rather just go down at my own and know when it was happening than just be in this tube and then be dropped without any warning. That was the trade-off I did. I can't remember what it was called, though. The Bombay Freefall. I'm just looking, because they've got a Wikipedia. Okay, Der Stucker. That's what it was called. It was called Der Stucker. Yeah, and it's right next to the Bombay. The Bombay... doesn't say when it was open, but the Der Stucker's been there since 1987. Thank goodness for Wikipedia. So that's probably one of my favourite theme park memories. Although of course going to Alton Towers, going on Oblivion, Nemesis, and all those other rides, that's a hell of a lot of fun. But George's second question. As you have covered Nintendo topics on the podcast and other media before, what are your current thoughts on the Nintendo Switch? Are there any games announced for it that you are interested in? The only games I'm interested in for the Nintendo Switch are the ones that you'd most likely expect people to be interested in. It's kind of cliche. Super Mario Odyssey and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. There's that punching game, Arms, that's what it's got. Yeah, there's Arms that looks interesting, but I don't know if I'd pay 50 quid for it. But the thing about the Nintendo Switch is that I'm kind of at that phase in my life where game companies really need to stop trying to cater to people like me, where I'm kind of too busy and too poor to afford to afford and play expensive game consoles and buy £50 games. They need to kind of start aiming for younger demographics as opposed to the same increasingly dwindling audience of people who are growing up and are frequently losing disposable income, or at least like not having the time to do it. Because like I work in the media industry, for crying out loud. I don't even have time to watch TV and films, let alone play games or do something in a completely different medium, which is incredibly frustrating. But that's kind of the reality of it. Most of the gaming I actually do now is, and feel free to call me a dirty casual or a filthy casual, is on my phone, because when I'm on a tram or when I'm on a bus or when I'm on break at work, I can just do something on my phone as opposed to just setting up a 2-hour-long gaming session on The Legend of Zelda. Or even like in a different case scenario, bringing my 3DS and playing around to a Smash Brothers. That's probably the most hardcore, quote unquote, gaming that I do. But in terms of the Nintendo Switch, I think it looks really good, looks really promising, but it is going to live or die based on that third-party support and based on those games. And time will tell whether or not it works. I think it's going to work out better than the Wii U did, because I think Nintendo's messaging and marketing and communication has been a lot more solid. But it comes out in like a week or two, doesn't it? Like it's not far off. It's next month. Nintendo Switch, the release date is the 3rd of March. This time next week, the Nintendo Switch will be out. I feel like this next week they need to start pushing it a lot more. I'm seeing a couple of TV adverts, but it's the stuff that you need to see advertised on the side of a bus or at a bus station or on the radio or something, and I'm just not hearing that buzz outside of just the Twitter circle that's already predisposed to commenting on that stuff, and Nintendo's going to have to reach a bit further than that. But their communication in terms of the actual console itself and the games on it has been much better than the Wii U. So I'm rooting for it, because I think if Nintendo does something different and it's successful, it promotes more competition in the gaming industry, whereas it's kind of one-sided to the PS4 at the moment, because the Xbox has kind of not really got much that's worth playing at the moment, in my humble opinion. But I think the way they've been handling the virtual console as well, and also the online stuff, because it's going to be free for a couple of months, and then it's going to make you pay a fee to play online for no good reason, and then it's going to allow you to rent a virtual console game a month. That's just That's so stupid. That's incredibly dense thinking on Nintendo's part, and I hope that doesn't work out for them. So it does teach them a lesson to, maybe if you're going to be charging for an online service, you actually give them a proper good service. But hopefully that changes and Nintendo wise up to that. It's absolutely ridiculous. For $5 or $6 a month or whatever, you get to play online and you get to rent an NES ROM for a month. Even though you could probably just play it for free on a phone or on your PC. It's stupid. And that whole Nintendo's YouTube copyright club thing, that's just the worst. So that's all of the Patreon questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Twitter segment, the lightning round, where these are questions that I asked for weeks ago, but I have scrolled all the way down my Twitter mentions to find them again. So some of these might be slightly outdated. I've not seen them, so I've been able to scroll down to the correct date and find them. But okay, so first question comes from Adam Mamoon. I've not even set up my timer. This is just the worst thing I've ever done in the history of the world. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the clock on my phone, stopwatch, 3, 2, 1, go. Favourite pre-2000 comic book movie? Superman 2 by the original cut. The Richard Donner cut is fine, but it doesn't feel like a complete film because of of course a lot of it is test footage and incomplete stuff. But Superman 2, the normal cut, is an incredibly solid film. It feels like a great follow-up to Superman 1. The stakes are higher, the stakes are more personal. It's just, there's a lot of fun in it as well. There's some pretty solid action, and the effects for the most part hold up really well. General Zod is terrific. I'm going to go for Superman 2. Superman 2 is probably by far and away the best one. In terms of its competition, Tim Burton's Batman's pretty good. Was X-Men 1999? Even if it is, it doesn't really hold a candle to Superman 2, in my opinion. So, next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Leighton Sewell asks, most overrated film of 2016. Off the top of my head, I'm going to go for Green Room, because I think I gave that 2 stars, whereas people were just raving about it and calling it the best horror film ever. It didn't really scare me. The characters weren't really particularly compelling. I felt like Patrick Stewart was utterly wasted, which is a shame because you don't really often see him play a villain. I think it was just a mighty shame to just saddle him with such a bland one-note character, and just it maybe felt like Patrick Stewart could have maybe done a bit more to bring some more dimension to that character. And I felt like even the gore effects weren't particularly gory. I've seen much worse, in recent years. I don't really see why Green Room is getting so praised and for its incredible makeup and its incredible gore, when I've, in my opinion, more gruesome and much more gruesome in a much more meaningful way. More films have come out in recent years that have completely trounced it, in my opinion. So I'm going to go for Green Room, but it's not a bad film, but it's not a great one. Okay, next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Ryan Bulkwill asks, worst movie of 2016. I did a podcast with Trey about the worst films of 2016, but that podcast was lost. I did name my top 3 worst films of last year, but now I'm going to save that discussion for either if we redo that podcast or if I do my top 10 worst films of the year. I don't really want to give it away because the answers may be different from what you would expect it to be. Okay, so next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Bob Jenkins 42 asks, what's your favourite film of 2017 so far? I've got 3. T2 Trainspotting, La La Land, and the Lego Batman movie. I've not had a 10 out of 10 film yet this year, but those 3 come pretty darn close. You got a great fun, subversive animated film in the Lego Batman movie. That's probably the best Batman movie since 2008. You've got an awesome musical that people say is a terrific feel-good movie, but the last 10 minutes are just emotionally devastating, and I don't really see how that's a feel-good film. And you've also got a really smart and clever and thoughtful follow-up to a 90s cult classic. Trainspotting 2, I think is actually better than the first one, but that's just my opinion. So, okay, next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Graham J. Williamson asks, if you got the opportunity to get another season of any new Who Doctors, who would it be? You can't pick War Doctor. Who would? Another season of new Who Doctors. Christopher Eccleston. I don't really see how it can be any other answer, in my opinion, because Like, he only got one season. As a result, that means his season felt really complete. It felt like he had a beginning, middle, and end character arc, which I felt like David Tennant and Matt Smith really lacked, because they, not only was it elongated, but it was muddled as well for the most part. But I think Christopher Eccleston I'd love to see another season of his. I think that he's a terrific actor. I think that he's one of my favourite Doctors, period, let alone like recent Doctors. We only got him for 13 episodes. Let's see him for some more. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, next question. 3, 2, 1, go. Luke Jenkins asks, what are your favourite episodes of The Inbetweeners? Okay, off the top of my head, when they go to Alton Towers, or when they go to the theme park, that's a really good one. I think that's the same episode where Simon is driving and he gets caught in that in that funeral procession. I like the episode with the dance, at least I think it's prom, and then it ends with them just on the I think they're on the trampoline or on the crash mats at the end. They're just looking at the ceiling and talking. I think that's a really good episode. The first movie I thought was a terrific capper to the series, and the second film, while really fun and really good, kind of feels let down by the fact that its predecessor felt like such a definitive conclusion. But yeah, there were some really good episodes of The Inbetweeners. If you've not watched it, I highly recommend you do. Not the US version, that misses the point so hard. Okay, next question. 3, 2, 1, go. Ryan Balkwill asks, how do you start rebooting the DCEU? Flashpoint. I think that the template's already there. You could do Flashpoint, and then you use that as an excuse to keep some of the great actors that you have already brought in for this. Ben Affleck, Jeremy Irons, Margot Robbie, Will Smith. If you reboot it, normally you just end up throwing those actors away and recasting, but I think it would just be a complete missed opportunity to do that. Whereas with Flashpoint, you can pick and choose. That's the whole point of DC reboots, where like every 4 or 5 years, or like every 2 years, because they seem to be doing it with alarming regularity now, they jettison the new parts of the canon that aren't working, and they keep the stuff that was popular and was working, and then they reboot it, and then they do the same thing again. I think they're doing it way too much, but that format and template is there, and that's probably how they could do it. Okay, so next question. 3, 2, 1, go. John Warren says, what has been your favourite experience with watching a film? My favourite experience has got to be watching The Avengers on opening night, and all my friends being there, and people who I didn't even know were interested in The Avengers, and just seeing them in the queue and seeing them in the audience, and then be like, oh, we're watching The Avengers together, that's awesome, let's all sit together. And they were laughing so hard when Puny God happened. They were laughing so hard we couldn't even hear the Hulk say Puny God. It was just a terrific crowd. Everyone was great. It was also just that there was my screening had an intermission for The Avengers, this opening night screening, when the Hulk, when Bruce Banner picks up the scepter, and Cap says, Dr. Banner, put down the scepter, and then he looks down. There was an intermission for 10 minutes. And the collective, when that happened, that was the perfect moment to have an intermission, but, don't have one anyway. But that's going to be my favourite experience in a cinema. Okay, I'm going to do one more of these. I'm going to scroll up and find a fun one. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. FilmBuff06 asks, thoughts on James Earl Jones and Donald Glover being cast as Mufasa and Simba in the live-action Lion King remake. I'm going to go off the assumption that Donald Glover is going to be playing the adult version of Simba, and they may cast a different actor for the younger kid version. That's just the assumption. If that is the case, I think Donald Glover is a good choice to play Simba. If they are going for this motion capture approach, I think he's a really good choice for adult Simba. James Earl Jones' Mufasa, historically speaking, you can't go wrong with that casting decision, but it just makes you think, what's the point? Couldn't they have if they were going to do that, couldn't they just use the original dialogue? And maybe there's nothing wrong with this choice. James Earl Jones, terrific voice actor, great actor. There's nothing wrong with him being Mufasa again, but I'm just thinking that unless they're going to do something very different with the character, there's not a lot of point to it. But I'm really looking forward to this, and hopefully they'll improve on the source material, because I think The Lion King is an iconic but very flawed film. Okay, that was, I actually kept it to under a minute for all of those lightning round questions. So thank you so much for listening to this late podcast. If you're a patron, then you'll be getting your Oscar your post-Oscar roundup podcast in a couple of days' time once of course, the ceremony has happened. So if you'd like to become a patron, then please consider going to www.patreon.com/Trilbee and pledging to help keep the lights on here at Trilbee Reviews. That also funds the videos and also the very frequent written reviews that I do on my website, so that's massively appreciated. And you also get email updates from Patreon when I upload a new video or when I do a written article or anything like that. Massively appreciate all of that. So please consider pledging via Patreon, or you could follow me on Twitter at Trilbee Reviews, where I will often do the call out for the lightning round questions. Be sure to keep an eye out for those. Be sure to subscribe to my SoundCloud or to the iTunes for Film Brits, and be sure to subscribe to me on YouTube at Trilbee Reviews, or follow my Facebook at Mr. TARDIS Reviews. So thank you so much for listening to this belated podcast. Thank you so much for tolerating my ramblings, and I shall see you guys next time.